my dear students. I am Vishali Korapati, Assistant Professor in Vignan University. I teach pharmacology. Pharmacology is a subject which deals with a different variety of drugs which are used to treat many diseases and disorder. So, if you are learning about a drug, you will learn about a mechanism of that drug, means how it is acting in our body and what it is doing to us, how we are reacting to that drug, like adverse effects. And we will learn about pharmacological actions and therapeutic uses. And what is the use of learning all this things about a drug? If you learn pharmacology, you get jobs in research and development in companies, in pharmacy companies, as well as biotechnology companies like biotech and Sun Pharma and Pfizer, which is a big company in overall internationally and nationally. And in pharmacovigilance, hospitals, like in hospitals you will get as a clinical pharmacist, clinical researcher, academic researcher, clinical scientist, JRF, SRF. JRF thing was Junior Research Fellowship, SRF Senior Research Fellowship, medical writer, medical transcriptor, and in regulatory affairs. When it comes to government sector, you will get jobs as a government approved pharmacist, clinical pharmacist, and drug inspector, medical advisor, healthcare administrator, or healthcare coordinator, and a medical officer. So you have very huge job opportunities if you learn this pharmacology. All the best, ma, for your future. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Today we will see the drugs which are acting on our heart. Okay, but before going to learn about the drugs which are acting on our heart, let's see the anatomy and physiology of heart. Why we are learning this anatomy and physiology of heart is because if we know the anatomy and physiology only, we will know how this drug is acting on the heart, at where it is acting and how it is acting. To know all those things, first we have to know this anatomy. Okay, ma? So let's see the structure of heart. Okay, so if you see this diagram, we can see the heart consists of 4 chambers. Okay, right atrium and right ventricle, left atrium and left ventricle, and this is aorta. To this aorta, we will be having 3 branches which are main branches, and this is pulmonary trunk. Okay, so between these two, right atrium and right ventricle, blood will flow with the help of a wall called as tricuspid wall. Okay, and from right ventricle to pulmonary trunk, it will flow with the help of a wall called as pulmonary wall. And if we see the left atrium and left ventricle, between these two we will be having a wall which is called as bicuspid wall. Okay, this is our bicuspid wall. And from left ventricle to aorta, you will be having aortic wall. Okay, in left side you will carry only oxygenated blood. Okay, from lungs, what will happen? Lungs will carry oxygen. When I'm inhaling, okay, I will take oxygen into my lungs. Okay, and in lungs you will be having alveoli. To this alveoli, think these fingers are blood vessels. So our alveoli will be rotating the blood vessels this. Our blood vessels will rotate our alveoli like this. Okay, so when I am inhaling, oxygen will go into my alveoli. From there, this blood vessels will take that oxygen, and from there it will take to pulmonary veins. Okay, and from there it will carry to left atrium, and from there I already told you, you will be having bicuspid wall. Through bicuspid wall it will go into left ventricle, and from There it will go into aorta with the help of aortic wall, and from there it will go into our systemic circulations, like to our brain and to remaining parts of our body like hands, legs, and every part of our body. So when it is going like that, so for example, now I have taken, it is traveling the same way, pulmonary veins first, okay, and from pulmonary veins to left atrium to left ventricle, aorta, and whole body. And while coming back, it will drop oxygen everywhere. It's like delivery man. Okay, so it will drop all the oxygen to each and every part, and it will give this oxygen to each and every cell in our body, because for every cell function, cell needs oxygen, isn't it? That's why this will supply oxygen to each and every part of our body, each and every part of our cell. Then in return, while it's coming, it will collect the carbon dioxide, okay, and how it will come back? When it is coming, it will carry all the carbon dioxide, and it will enter into our superior and inferior vena cava, okay, and also coronary sinuses, and from there it will enter into right atrium, then it will go into right ventricle with the help of tricuspid wall, and from there it will go into pulmonary trunk and pulmonary arteries with the help of pulmonary wall, and then it will go into the blood vessels which are attached to our alveoli, okay, and from here this will leave the carbon dioxide into the alveoli, and we will exhale it. So within few seconds this whole function will get completed. For example, if I'm inhaling, I won't wait till all this blood enters till my toe, isn't it? So this all will happens within seconds. I'll inhale, this will go into my heart, it will do the function, it will come back, okay. So the next one is, after circulation we have to see how it is circulating with the help of conduction, okay. So how it is conducting, we have two systems of conduction. Let's call it as impulse generation, okay. So what it is called as impulse generation. So in this impulse generation we have two types, okay. We have two types of fibers. One is autonomic myocardial fiber, and the next one is non-autonomic myocardial fiber. Before coming into this structure, let's see non-autonomic myocardial fiber, okay, how it is working. Here I have shown the same thing. So if you see this one, how it is circulating, this is oxygenated blood and this is deoxygenated blood. You see how it is working, okay. You can pause the video and see how it is circulating. So as I told you, first one is impulse generation, and let's see how it is generating the impulse. In this we have, I already told you, we will be having two types of myocardial fibers. One is non-autonomic myocardial fiber and autonomic myocardial fiber. Non-autonomic myocardial fiber is very important. Like what it will do, it will constrict and relax, okay, but it can't generate impulse by its own, okay. It is instructed by our nervous system, okay. If there is a panic situation, like if I am very panic now, my impulse generation will be more. My sodium ions and calcium ions will be more. But when I'm in relaxation, the sodium and calcium levels will be normal, so my heartbeat will be normal, isn't it? That's the difference. So here non-autonomic fibers can't generate impulse by its own, okay ma. So so we have so many phases in this. Let's see the phases. um, so if you see here, let's see how it is working, how this non-atomic fibers are working. So when there are in resting membrane potential, so we will see where this is happening. Okay, this whole function is happening in our myocardial fiber, as I told you. So think this is our myocardial fiber. This myocardial fiber is a part of myocardium muscle, okay, which will be in our heart here. Okay, this is your myocardial fiber. So the upper layer, the outer layer is sarcolemma. What is that, ma? It is called as sarcolemma. Outside this, you will be having interstitial fluid. What is the fluid, ma? Interstitial fluid. And inside, you will be having cytosols. On this membrane, you will be having sodium channels, potassium channels, and calcium channels. What are the channels, ma? First, sodium channels, potassium, and calcium. Okay, so when my fiber is in resting membrane potential, when it is in resting stage, it is not generating any impulse. At that time, this potassium will be more in my membrane, in my fiber. Okay, in impulse generation, we will consider potassium as negative charge only, ma. Okay, so here there will be no potassium outside, but you will be having more potassium inside. Okay, so now your membrane is negative charge. That's why here if you see, when it is in resting membrane potential, the charge of it is minus 90 MV. Okay, so when it starts the action potential, when it is starting to generate this action potential, why it is starting this action potential? Because we have more sodium ions outside the membrane. Okay, ma, you have more sodium ions outside the membrane. So when there is, we already know, when there is more concentration outside the membrane, it will try to come inside, isn't it? But here the sodium ions will come very rapidly. Why they are coming very rapidly? Because you have so many huge number of sodium ions outside the membrane. That's why they will try to come inside very rapidly. And not only that, these sodium channels will open very fast. Okay, when they are opening fast, this ions will try to push. For example, when you go to any theater, what will happen? When they open the gates, everybody will rush into the theater, right? The same way here also, the sodium is very anxious to go inside this membrane. That's why when sodium channels are opening the gates, it will rush into the membrane. Okay, ma, when that's why it's called as rapid depolarization. Why we are calling as depolarization? Because positive charge is going inside. When the membrane is with positive charge, it will depolarize. Okay, ma. Now one depolarization got complete. At this stage, my charge is 0. Okay, because outside you have calcium, positive charge. Inside also you have positive plus negative, because potassium and sodium both are there, isn't it? That's why now my charge is 0 MV. Previously in resting it's minus 90 MV. Now 0. Let's go into the phase 2, which is our plateau stage. Okay, in this plateau stage, what will happen? The calcium channels, voltage gated calcium channels will also open. If you see here the voltage channels are opening, so calcium will enter inside. Okay, when this calcium is entering inside, simultaneously potassium will go outside. Okay, but when this calcium is entering inside, that stage is called as plateau stage. Okay, ma. So here we will be having depolarization. At this stage our charge will be plus 30 MV. At this stage our charge will be plus 30 MV. Okay, ma. So after next, I already told you potassium ions will go outside because potassium channels will also open. So this potassium ions will go outside. When they are going outside, what is happening? Outside the charge is very less. Now inside there is more positive charge. Now also our interstitial fluid is minus charge and our cytosol is in positive charge, isn't it? So what will happen? Again, this potassium, this sodium wants to go outside. This sodium will be like where there is less charge, it wants to shift there. Okay, so now again my sodium channels will open. Now my sodium channels will go outside. Okay, now when they are starting to go outside, potassium will try to come inside. This is the last stage, which is called as repolarization. Okay, ma, which is called as repolarization. It is coming back to previous stage. That's why it's called as repolarization. So now it is like the thing which I have explained. This is the whole concept. When it is in resting membrane potential, it is minus 90 MV. Okay, everything is coming inside. Like sodium is coming inside. In phase 1, in this phase 1, potassium ions are opening, leading to sodium potassium ions will go outside, which causes minus 0 MV. So the next one is autonomic fibers. In this autonomic fibers, we what it will happen is, this fibers are meant to do its work by its own. These fibers work autonomic by its own. This will do contraction by its own. How? Actually, I want to show you a diagram. So this is how it's happening. Before that, let's see a video. We have two types of nodes here. One is AV node, SA node and AV node. So here when what will happen, this SA node will produce one impulse. Okay, this impulse will be in our right atrium as well as left atrium. This impulse will generate impulse are generated in right atrium and left atrium also. So what will happen? Our blood is pumping from right atrium to right ventricle. When it is doing that, it will also generate this impulse to AV node. From this AV node, it will generate the impulse into the bundle of His. So this, if you see a thin line here, this is bundle of His. And from this, you will be having right bundle of His and left bundle of His. Okay. So from there, it will go into Purkinje fibers. Those are Purkinje fibers. Okay, ma. So here you can see it very clearly. This is SA node, sinoatrial node, which is giving impulse. If you see the arrow marks, it is giving impulse to my right atrium as well as left atrium. And from there, it is also activating, it is also generating impulse in AV node. When it is activating the AV node, it will also generate the electrical stimulus into my bundle of His. This is my bundle of His. If you see here this thin line, this is bundle of His. And from there it will go into right and left bundle branches. And from there it will go into my Purkinje fibers. Why it is going? So when this electrical stimulus go there, because of this electrical shock, it will constrict without any need of sodium or without any need of calcium. It will constrict because of shock. For example, if you ever touch this small wires which will give a light shock to you, so when they are giving shock, what will happen? We will withdraw, isn't it? We will be having a small jerking movement in our body. That's nothing but constriction. Okay, so this will get that type of excuse me. So what is happening here? This is the reason if we separate heart from the body also, it will beat at least 2 to 3 minutes. Yes, after separation of this heart from our body, it will start to pump. It will do its work. It will constrict. It will constrict and relax. It will beat. Okay. So this is our autonomic fibers. And the next one is impulse conduction. I already told you now only that conduction, how it is done. Okay, so it's because of depolarization, though it is fast or slow. So this is fast action potential and this is slow action potential. If we see this one, this is this fast action potential will be like very fast. Okay, and this is very slow. That's why the threshold is very different. And in SA node, when I am talking about this SA node won't have when it is generating this impulse, it won't have any resting membrane potential. That's why it doesn't start at 90. It started 40 minus 40 MV. Okay, ma? So next one, let's see hemodynamics. What is hemodynamics? It is hem means blood and dynamics is the way it flows. Okay, the force and everything. The force of at what rate the blood is flowing in our blood vessels. Knowing that is called as hemodynamics. So here first we have to know what is blood flow. So the volume for every given time, how much of volume of this blood is flowing through each and every tissue. For example, if I'm considering my skin, it's a type of tissue, right? This part, at how many minutes, at a given period of time, how much volume of blood is supplied to this area, that is known as blood flow. Sometimes I will if I got any injury, my blood flow for this will be reduced. That means the flow of blood here is reduced. Okay, the volume of blood will be reduced. And the next one is cardiac output. Cardiac output, this is very important, Bitma. In each and every GPAT question, you will be having what is cardiac output. They will be giving 4 options, but each minute is very important. They will be giving each hour, each second like that, but each minute is very important and every GPAT question paper consists of this question. So remember this very carefully. The volume of blood that circulates through systemic or pulmonary blood vessels each minute. Okay. For example, systemic and pulmonary is nothing but it's like going to my whole body and coming back to my lungs. Okay. The whole thing is called as cardiac output. The volume of blood that circulates through my systemic or pulmonary. It is pulmonary blood vessels each minute is known as cardiac output. So cardiac this is the formula of cardiac output, ma. So the cardiac output formula is heart rate into stroke volume. So how this blood is circulated, how this cardiac output is circulating blood into our tissues, it is dependent upon two factors. One is the pressure differences that drives the blood flow through a tissue. Okay, at what pressure it is supplying blood to that tissue, and the resistance of the blood flow in a blood vessel. Okay, and how much this blood vessel is bearing that much. Why we have to know that? Because every blood molecule, blood cell will be having one pressure. For example, what is blood pressure, ma? What is blood pressure? It's like at how much pressure blood is flowing in that blood vessel is known as blood pressure, isn't it? So constriction, how with how much difficulty this ventricles will constrict, that will be having that much force. For example, if I am in very tensed condition, so my heart will constrict very hard. At that time, what will happen? My blood pump will be, my pressure will be increased. Okay, so my blood pressure is dependent upon three conditions. One is cardiac output, next one is blood volume, and the third one is vascular resistance. And this vascular resistance is very important for your future studies also, because vascular resistance, like in GPAT also, you will be having so many questions on vascular resistance. So listen carefully. Okay, so the next one is systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure. Before going into the systole and diastole, let's see what is the difference between systole and diastole. Systole is nothing but constriction. Okay, so when there is a cardiac cycle, systole means when it is constricting. Okay, that is systole, which we hear very hardly, like loudly. And next one is diastole. Diastole is relaxation. Okay, ma'am. So let's see the definition. Systolic blood pressure is the highest pressure attained in arteries. Remember this. Highest pressure attained in arteries during systole. When it is constricting, the highest pressure which is attained in the arteries, that is recorded as systolic blood pressure. Okay, and diastolic blood pressure is the lowest arterial pressure during diastole. When it is releasing, when it is relaxing, the lowest rate will be the diastolic blood pressure. Okay, ma'am. So the next definition will be your mean arterial pressure. The mean arterial pressure is the average pressure which is attained in our arteries. Like when it is doing constriction or relaxation, the whole average is known as our mean arterial pressure. In that arteries, it is called as mean arterial pressure. This will be roughly 1/3 of the way between the diastolic and systolic pressure. So the definition will be diastolic blood pressure plus 1/3 into systolic blood pressure minus diastolic blood pressure. So to know this calculation, let's see example. Okay, so let's see an example here. So think my blood pressure is 110/80. So here my blood pressure is 110/80. So what will be my systolic pressure? This one. This is my systole and this is my diastole. Okay. So let's see the definition. Like first we have to keep the definition is diastolic blood pressure, which will be R 80 plus 1/3 into 110 minus 80. So 80 plus 1 by 3 into 30. So 10 is equal to, what will be the answer, ma? So I will say that 93. Okay, this will be my mean arterial pressure. Okay, ma? Have you understood? So the next one, as I told you, the vascular resistance. In this vascular resistance, what is this vascular resistance? So when blood is flowing, every time when the blood is flowing, it will be having one pressure. Isn't it? The blood vessels will go through a pressure. For example, if blood is flowing very smoothly, the pressure in that blood vessel will be normal. Though it is flowing, it will be having some pressure. Okay, because it have to flow because when vessels are constricting, it will be having more pressure in our upper parts when compared to the lower parts. Here we will be having more pressure, because why we will be having more pressure? By when while going down, the pressure will decrease. So what our heart will do, it will press very hardly. Okay, that's why it will be like our heart. If you see the heart pumping mechanism, from our upper concentrations to lower greater higher concentrations to lower concentrations, it will flow very easily from atrium to ventricle. It will be like it will drop into the ventricle. But ventricle, when they are pumping, it have to go into a pulmonary trunk, or it have to go into aorta. And if it is going into aorta, it have to supply to my whole body, isn't it? And not only that, it have to supply to my brain also, isn't it, ma? That's why it needs some pressure. So this will have some friction between the blood and blood vessels. That is our vascular resistance. This vascular resistance will depend on three major things. First one is size of the blood vessel lumen, and the next one is blood viscosity, and the third one is total blood vessel length. So let's see the first one. So what is this lumen, blood vessel lumen? So if you see this one, so think this is blood vessel. Okay, you will be having two layers in this. So this is outer thin layer, and this is a muscle. Okay, this will be inner thick layer, and the one which is here, draw with it. One which is here, this is our lumen, the gap in the blood vessel. This is our lumen. Okay, ma? So that is called as lumen. So the resistance here, when it compares to lumen, the smaller the lumen, the higher the resistance. Okay, so inversely proportional. So the resistance is inversely proportional to the diameter of the blood vessel lumen, and this is the diameter, right? This is the diameter. So my resistance is inversely proportional to the diameter of the lumen, blood vessel lumen. Next one is, so what you have understood? For example, if the blood is flowing very fast, okay, and the diameter length is very large, do you think the resistance will differ? Yes, obviously. Okay, I already told you, smaller the lumen, greater the resistance, and bigger the lumen, worse the resistance. The blood flow, the vessels won't able to handle the friction. Okay, so next one is our blood viscosity. So think this viscosity is dependent upon our cells, RBC, platelets, and sometimes our proteins also. Okay, if we have more viscosity, okay, more thickness, what about the resistance? So the resistance will be more if we have more viscosity. Okay. For example, if we have anemia, what will happen? The viscosity will be reduced and the resistance will also reduces. Okay. The resistance of the blood vessel, resistance of the vascular blood vessel will be reduced. Okay, ma? So total and blood vessel length. So longer the blood vessel, more resistant, and smaller the blood vessel, less resistance. Why we? That's the reason the person who have obesity, they will be having more blood vessels. Okay, but they will be having more blood supply and more pressure. That's why they will be having more hypertension. Okay, that's the reason the one who have this obesity, they will be having higher hypertensive conditions. And venous returns, if we see venous returns, what is venous returns is, for example, my arteries are taking blood to my whole body, but how it will come back? Higher concentrations to lower concentration. My blood vessels are, my arteries are dropping blood to my toes. But how it will come back? That is venous returns. Our arteries and veins will also have this walls which will avoid the backflow. Okay, let's see how this veins will act in our legs. So if I'm taking leg, so this is my vein. Okay, in this vein you will be having walls. So so if you see this one, I will zoom this so that you will be able to see this one. Sorry, ma. So here, can you see this? So you will be having walls, and why it is called as proximal wall? This is near to our body line. That's why it's called as proximal, and this is distal. So if you see this one, when I think this is the surface and think this is my leg, because I can't show my leg to you. So I am showing my hand. Okay. So think this is my leg. If I'm rest, like if I'm sleeping or anything, what will happen? This walls will be in opened condition only. They won't close at all because there is no pressure. They won't, if we move our muscles only, they will open or close. But when they are in rest stage or standing position, they will be in open condition only. Okay, so if I am like this, they will be, the balls will be in open condition. What if I am doing this one? If I am raising my leg, this is my toe. If I am standing on my toe, when I am lifting this one, if you see here, this both muscles are pressing. At that time, this distal wall, what to avoid the backflow, this will close. Distal wall will get closed, and even this two muscles, they will press each other. When they are pressing also, the wall will stop blood there only. Okay, and here if you see, this wall is open. Okay, blood can flow there only. And if you see this one, now the person have kept his leg down. So what is happening here? The proximal wall got closed and the distal wall open. Okay, ma? Once again, I'm saying, when you are in the resting stage, like sleeping, your walls will be in opening condition, because it will directly backflow, because arteries will give you supply with oxygenated blood, and veins will take deoxygenated blood, isn't it? So when it is giving, this will take up, because every blood cell should flow back, isn't it? So that condition, we have this walls. When we are in sleeping condition, this walls will be in open. But when we are walking or standing, this person have raised his leg. If you see, he is standing with his toes. When he is standing with his toes, his muscles got extended. So what it is doing, it is compressing the veins. When it is compressing the veins, what is happening, the walls in this veins will get the distal wall will get closed, and the proximal cause wall remains open. Okay, so that the blood will flow back. Okay, but here when he came back to normal in standing position without raising anything and without moving his leg, then what is happening, the proximal one get closed and the distal one opened, isn't it? So here he raised and here he dropped again. So this is how our venous return will act. So this is your electrophysiology of heart and hemodynamics. Ma. Tomorrow I will talk about the drugs which are acting on our heart. Mainly tomorrow I will take CHF. Okay. Thank you, ma. So here I want to show you a video, ma, in which I have dissected the heart, and previously, as I told you, after removing the heart from our body also, it will beat till almost 5 minutes without anything, because without any support. Okay, ma. So you watch the video. So if you see here, you will be able to see aorta as well as pulmonary trunk over here, this one. Okay, so if you see here, when I'm pricking it, you observe it closely, it is contracting.